You click buy on your favorite app. You think you just bought crypto, but the moment your finger taps that screen, the clean, simple interface you're looking at completely fractures. It breaks apart into these unseen, incredibly complex streams of data. Order books are flickering, numbers are cascading, and these massive hidden systems suddenly ignite. So welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely map out the crypto market infrastructure and show you what is actually happening behind your trade. You see, that single tap of yours, it feels like one contained moment, right? But what if that's not what actually happened? As we zoom in, your order instantly splits. It reroutes, it's actively matching against hidden liquidity in literally a fraction of a second. Between buy and owned, there is an entire system you never see. Real quick, before we dive deeper into the dark forest of all this, I need to remind you that this explainer on the channel Block Spawns Funds is created for educational and informational purposes only and absolutely does not constitute financial or investment advice. All right, let's dive right into the invisible plumbing running behind that buy button. Your single tap actually drops through a whole interconnected stack of systems. It starts at the user interface, sure, but from there, it plunges straight into the matching engine, which is basically the brain of the operation, desperately trying to pair up buyers and sellers. Then it seeks out liquidity provision, finding the market makers willing to take the other side of your bet. And finally, it hits the absolute bedrock, the settlement layer. That's where ownership legally and technically changes hands. Now, let's look at exactly where and how these trades actually connect, because it varies wildly depending on the type of platform you're using. If you're on a centralized exchange, your trade is hitting what's called a central limit order book. It's totally off-chain, and it happens in milliseconds. It is lightning fast. But if you're using a decentralized exchange, there is no central order book. Every single trade happens directly on-chain, utilizing smart contracts in decentralized liquidity pools. And instead of relying on a human market maker sitting at a desk, a decentralized exchange uses this incredibly elegant piece of math, X times Y equals K. It's a constant product formula that automatically adjusts the price of an asset based purely on supply and demand. It's a brilliant way to spin up brand new markets out of thin air. But you gotta remember, it relies entirely on outside arbitrageurs to keep the exchange rates perfectly accurate. And honestly, it introduces some pretty unique risks for the regular folks providing all that liquidity. So as your order's fracturing and routing through all these wildly different systems, you really have to stop and ask yourself, where did your trade actually go, and who exactly took the other side? Well, this leads us to the illusion of a fractured market, and how friction and time play a massive role in what you end up paying. You see, liquidity in crypto isn't just sitting in one big bucket. It is deeply, deeply fragmented across dozens of centralized exchanges and decentralized protocols. Because order books can be incredibly thin on any one platform, these things called smart order routers have to step in. They dynamically chop up your trade across multiple venues in a matter of milliseconds to save you from severe price slippage. So your one single click to buy, it might actually be 10 different micro trades executing simultaneously all over the globe. But this fragmentation exposes a pretty massive vulnerability in the system. Blockchains take time to validate transactions, right? And that latency means cross-exchange arbitrageurs face enormous price risks. While they are literally just waiting for a transfer to settle between two different platforms, the market price could swing wildly against them. This slight delay, this latency, is exactly why prices can temporarily fall completely out of sync across the entire world. Which brings up a fascinating and slightly terrifying thought. Because of all this fragmentation, two totally identical trades executed by two different people at the exact same millisecond can yield entirely different financial outcomes. It all depends on the routing, the latency, and the specific matching engine of the exchange you happened to be on. So, let's step into the dark forest. Let's talk about the unseen actors and the value extraction happening just beneath the surface. The crypto market right now is undergoing this massive shift toward what we call intent-based trading. Think of it like this.
In a standard traditional transaction, you are telling the blockchain exactly what to do step by step. Do A, then B, and I'll pay exactly C. But with an intent, you're just declaring the outcome you want. You're basically saying, hey, I want this token and I'm willing to pay up to this amount. And you outsource all the messy execution to highly sophisticated third-party solvers.
Now, outsourcing sounds super convenient, but it gives these middlemen an unbelievable amount of power. These unseen actors can extract massive value from the market, which we call MEV, or maximum extractable value, simply by reordering transactions and capturing spreads for themselves. And they're usually doing this straight out of the pockets of everyday passive liquidity providers. If this exclusive order flow ends up controlled by just a handful of powerful builders, well, it kind of threatens the entire decentralized foundation of blockchain tech. And speaking of centralization, here's a wild reality check. Even with the absolute explosion of decentralized finance over the last few years, the data tells a very different story. Centralized exchanges still command a staggering 89% of all global trading volume. They are basically massive walled gardens, completely internalizing the roles of broker, custodian, and clearinghouse, all entirely off-chain.
And that brings us to the ultimate resolution of your trade, which is probably the most misunderstood concept in all of crypto. Somewhere in the gap between I clicked buy and I own this, when does the asset actually truly become yours?
Let's look at the reality of the settlement layer, which is where the consequences of your trade finally become legally and technically enforceable. When you're trading on a centralized exchange, your account balance updates instantly, making you feel like you just got your tokens. But listen to this, absolutely nothing actually moved on the blockchain. It is literally just an internal database updating a number on a screen, leaving you entirely exposed to that exchange's custodial risk. Now, on the flip side, on-chain settlement means your trade is actually broadcast to a decentralized network of validators and cemented permanently into a block. Though, keep in mind, in proof-of-work systems, this finality is technically probabilistic, meaning it just becomes more mathematically certain as more blocks pile up on top of it. There's a brilliant insight from Cube Exchange that perfectly sums this up. Execution is where transactions happen, but settlement is where their consequences become enforceable. You have to remember this fundamental distinction. Execution is just the handshake agreement. Settlement is the actual enforcement. And this is where the stress fractures of the entire global system show up. When networks get severely congested or an exchange goes down, a massive gap opens up between what you perceive you own and what has actually settled. In the leverage and derivatives markets, oh man, these gaps can trigger brutal cascading liquidations that feed right back into spot prices, literally tearing down the entire house of cards. But here's the incredible upside. Blockchain infrastructure introduces something traditional finance can only dream of: T0, atomic settlement. Instead of waiting days for a trade to clear through traditional clearinghouses, atomic settlement ensures that the agreement to trade and the actual transfer of value happen at the exact same instantaneous moment. Counterparty risk is completely eliminated. So look at what we've uncovered here today. You didn't just trade crypto. You entered a living, breathing, multi-layered market system. We've peeled back the interface to reveal the high-speed matching engines, the automated market makers, the smart order routers, the arbitrageurs fighting latency, and the absolute finality of the settlement layer. That simple little tap on your phone is actually igniting a massive, incentive-driven global network. As capital flows through this incredible hidden architecture, the question is no longer whether your trade simply executes. The real question is how the system decides the terms. So the next time you tap buy, just ask yourself, what unseen forces are waiting in the dark forest to shape the true outcome of your trade? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and always keep questioning the systems running right beneath the surface.